Good evening. I'm Neman Injalembetiki of the Fiji Sun. Welcome to Fiji's only TV editorial show. In my say this week, I'll be speaking on bridging the cultural, racial, and religious divide. One of the factors that stifle our growth in this country is the prejudices that exist in our communities, the way we look at others who are not of our kind, so to speak. It conjures up suspicion, distrust, animosity, and even hatred. The negative perception is even more pronounced when it comes to economic gaps between the various groups. Prejudices also exist within a particular group, but often they are rooted in envy and jealousy. A lot of these prejudices exist because of misunderstanding and ignorance. The social environment we live in influences the way we think and behave. I grew up in a village and went to the local school for my primary education. My whole life revolved around the village. I hardly went to town, only on a very special occasion, but with my parents. I learned the local customary practices and cultural sensitivities. I also learned to be quiet and attentive when those older than me speak to me. They include my parents, relatives, school teachers, church leaders, and village elders. I learned to be obedient and love everyone, and to familiarize myself with the local lingo and culture. When I was 11, I left home to be on my own for the first time. This was when I enrolled at Queen Victoria School as a Form 1 student. It became my second home for 6 years. While I went home for the school holidays, I spent most of the 6 years at the school. I had to readjust. One of the very first things I learned was to overcome the culture of silence. I learned to speak out and to speak my mind and assert myself. I learned self-esteem. I also learned from students from other provinces. They were different in some ways, and I had to learn and understand the differences. That exposure and learning continued into my professional life as a journalist. As I traveled and met people from many countries in the world, I learned to understand and to appreciate the diversity of cultures and beliefs. Instead of seeing these as barriers to our unity, they should be the glue that binds us together as one nation and people. We need more social integration to remove the prejudices that were born out of some of the aspects of our cultural heritage. The Attorney General, Mr. Ayaz Sayed Qayyum, has suggested that we should study the history of different races and cultures in this country to increase our knowledge and understanding of the different ethnicities. He made the call at the Gurmit Centennial celebrations in Lautoka to remember the arrival of the last shipload of indentured laborers from British India in 1916. Learning and understanding each other's history will help break down the walls of prejudice. Many Indo-Fijians in Fiji can trace their roots back to the Gurmitias, the Indian indentured laborers. And non-Indo-Fijians can also learn that the Gurmitias were lured into coming to Fiji to work in sugarcane plantations. They were exploited and treated like slaves. But they endured, survived, and helped build the first building blocks of Fijian economic development. Some of the most successful industries today had their origins back in the old days. They have built them through blood, sweat, and tears. We owe it to these pioneers what we now have today. Their legacy becomes all our legacy because of the profound impact of their contribution to this country. Their descendants, therefore, have earned their rights through their ancestors to be equal participants in this country's development. Any effort to alienate or discriminate them should be condemned in the strongest possible terms. The Constitution now regards all of us, including descendants of Gurmitias, equal under a common name, Fijian. We should strive to reach out and understand other races and cultures. It will help us let go of prejudices we harbor. This is Neman Intelembetiki of the Fiji Sun. That was my say tonight. For more of my views, you can read the Fiji Sun. See you next week.